Elections Committee. We have several bills on the docket for today. We'll begin with HB 194. I also wanted just to advise for the presenters as well as anyone testifying, if you could please bring the mic as close to you as possible, and to let you know that if you are far away, we cannot hear you very well. So in the interest of accessibility, we'd all appreciate that. With that, we will begin with HB 194, Delegate Metzger. Delegate, do you have a sponsor panel you would like to invite up?
Yes, Madam Chair, if you don't mind, it can
Please.
come up. I think
Thank
there's
you.
several going to be coming and testifying, so if you don't
Great.
mind.
They're welcome to come up. I think I have Matt. I always say your name incorrectly. Matt, can you please, Tufo? Adam Cummings and Ann Pack. Is that correct?
It is actually Yvonne Brawley-Wilson. Adam Cummings is my executive.
Okay, I'll have you say your name on the record when you begin to speak. That's perfect.
Thank you.
And just a reminder to the bill sponsors, our bill sponsors are not timed, but we ask that you be kind with the length of your remarks, and all other presenters have 2 minutes to present. So thank you very much. The floor is yours, Delegate.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and ladies and gentlemen, Vice Chair. 12 years ago, I made a commitment that I would never fall in love with a bill. And in those 12 years, I'd never fallen in love with a bill. However, I've broken that commitment. I have fallen in love with this bill. And I will tell you that House Bill 194, when you see the details and what it does, you will fall in love with it as well, and you want to co-sponsor it. For the record, I am Delegate Rick Metzger from Legislative District 6. I am the sponsor of House Bill 194. The synopsis of the bill is simple. While serving time for the inmates in jail, they learn to get a trade and a certified license of that trade. I've always been a proponent of teaching trades, even in school, even though they don't teach trades in school much anymore. There's always going to be a need for electricians, carpenters, plumbers, roofers, and mechanics as well. But what I'm excited about is that this bill, when they're finished, they will leave with a marketable skill. And before I go much further, whether they're serving a 3-year sentence, a 5-year, they can come out with an electrician's apprentice. They can come out with a carpenter's apprentice. They can come out with a plumber's apprentice, and then come out with an HVAC apprentice. So really, when they can come out and get their own home improvement license and be their own independent contractor. But with that said, ladies and gentlemen, let me share that this is a bill that is so exciting for me, because while the inmate is incarcerated, we can think outside the box. And by that, I mean that we take the person to a job site where they actually learn a trade. And while they're learning the trade, they actually will get paid, for an example, a $15 an hour salary. So while they're getting trade and they're learning to get trade, they will also be able to have a checking account, a bank account. While they're there, if they are a parent, the mother at home can now be able to get some child support because, of course, it's naturally court-ordered. So that comes out. So mother gets money, funding, assistance. Then when the person comes out of jail, he has a established credit card, he has a bank account, and while he's there, he gets a W-2 form. He becomes a taxpayer. He's able to become, when he comes out of the facility, he can become a homeowner. Ladies and gentlemen, and when he does come out, he has his own debit card. He can buy a car and not steal a car to get home. So with that, I'm excited to share that State's Attorney Ivan Bates has sent a letter, and I'm going to summarize real quickly that, got to put the glasses on for this, but I'm just going to skip down. You have these letters. But this is, it's very simple. I'm writing to express my unwavering support for 194, Department of Public Service and Safety Correctional Incarcerated Individuals. This critical piece of legislation provides men and women behind bars with a tangible opportunity for rehabilitation, financial stability before they return to society. Moving down, that is why our office is partnering with the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Service and the Governor's Office to create the reentry program with Baltimore City. Delegate Metzger demonstrates in this legislation the need for real reform within our criminal justice system. It's not a partisan effort. I will also read a paragraph from State's Attorney Scott Schellenberger in Baltimore County. I write in support of 194 that will require the Department of Public Safety to establish programs so the incarcerated inmates will learn job skills while incarcerated. House Bill 194 establishes a program for correctional service that will coordinate apprenticeship programs for incarcerated persons, while the bill directly provides incarcerated people with the work experiences and apprenticeships during there. The true effect of the bill will allow these persons to gain skills that will increase their employability once they are released. Reentry services like this are an investment in public safety. Research has demonstrated individuals returning to their communities from incarceration are less likely to reoffend when they are afforded the manageable opportunities. By breaking the cycle of recidivism, reentry programs like this created in 194 directly contribute to public safety and preventing crime at any cost associated with the programs. These programs pay for themselves in returning. I will tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that I'm excited to tell you that the physical summary is very minimal. It's only 297, and at the end of fiscal year 2031, it's only 395,000. By that, ladies and gentlemen, I expect a favorable review and a great result from this, and I'll turn it over to one of my people here that want to share.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Ann Pack. I'm co-founder and director of advocacy for Prepare. We provide support in the parole and reentry process, and I am also a formerly incarcerated person. I have sat on work groups throughout the state, CEC employment, MEJC, prison education delivery reform, AG civil rights, and every single work group has talked about this issue and asked for a solution to this problem. Right now, you get training behind the walls as an incarcerated person, and when you get to work release, they send you to work at McDonald's. They train you to be a mechanic and they send you to work at McDonald's, and then they send you out in the community and they expect you to find a job as a mechanic. But there's no continuity of care. There's no continuity in that system. Creating this program would create continuity where what I learn when I'm 3 years from release, now I'm 18 months from release and I'm eligible for work release, and now I can go out and get a job in a shop. And I can work as a mechanic in the community, and I can earn my ASEs, and then when I come home, I'm already connected with Department of Labor, and I can work with that reentry navigator before I'm released to have a job in a shop the day I come home. And this is what we want to see. Everybody agrees on it. There are a few technical issues. I put them in my testimony. I won't bore you with them here, that would make this cheaper to do, because there's already a work release infrastructure in subtitle 8 that's already completely built. There's already policy, there's already regulation. This is just adding into, I would suggest 801, where you just add this program in there and run it on that existing infrastructure, save yourselves the money, and make this available so that people coming home can be successful when they come home. People like me can come home and have a job day one, even if they aren't someone who can co-found a nonprofit from behind the walls. So I thank you for listening to me. Have a wonderful day.
Good afternoon, Chair Wells, Vice Chair Kerr, and committee members of the Government, Labor, and Elections Committee. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to submit testimony in support of HB 194. I am Yvonne Briley Wilson, the Maryland Correctional Ombudsman. I am here this afternoon testifying on behalf of the Maryland Office of the Correctional Ombudsman, OCO, in support of HB 194, incarcerated job training. As the agency that provides oversight to the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services, as well as DJS, it is the mission of the Office of the Correctional Ombudsman to function in transparency, accountability, and impartiality, ensuring that incarcerated adults and detained and/or adjudicated youth are treated fairly with dignity, humanity, and respect. OCO emphasizes the importance of the collaboration among the agencies we oversee, the individuals in their care, and the staff working within them. We also value the strength of our community partnerships and prioritize the reduction of recidivism and the safety of Marylanders. OCO supports 194 because it aligns with the mission of OCO and supports the successful reintegration of formerly incarcerated individuals back into the community. Rehabilitation preparation to re-enter the community should and does start from the point of incarceration. When the HB 194 seeks to ensure incarcerated individuals are prepared to re-enter society with proper training and professional skills. Over the last year and a half, OCO has consistently received inquiries, complaints from incarcerated individuals in every facility we have entered about not being prepared to re-enter the community with appropriate job training. Individuals who do not have the proper job training Sorry.
If you'd like to finish your thought, Ms. Wilson.
Well, in conclusion, we completely support this bill because it creates more opportunity. It is beneficial to not only the IIs, but those who will reap the benefits of the apprenticeship program. And yeah, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Could you tell us what II means? I did notice.
Incarcerated individuals.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, and members of the committee. For the record, Matt Tafeo on here on behalf of Associated Builders and Contractors, ABC Maryland. Basically a me too, but this is a bill we've supported in the past. I thank the delegate for putting this forward. Just a little bit about why we support this bill and our mission statement in the state. We include more than 1,500 contractors and associates and employ over 30,000 employees in the state. And we support the business growth and betterment of our local communities. And this bill, it definitely speaks to how we've trained over 6,000 craft professionals since 2000. And this will create a pathway and a pipeline for the craft and trades that we need in this state, sincerely, in a lot of areas. So again, fully support this bill and thank the delegate for putting it forward. And with that, we ask for a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just one thing in conclusion, Madam Chair, that
This is the first time I'm doing this for anyone, just so you know.
yes, I know, I'm ready.
You're special right now.
Just before I finish and turn it over to everybody, raise your hands, that I was thinking last night when these individuals finish their training and they come out and become a homeowner, that particular home that they might be living in might be one that they worked on. And that gives a real pride of ownership. And with as many houses in Baltimore City that need to be repaired and restored, this would be a tremendous way to make that revitalization happen. And I'm more proud than ever to sponsor this. So thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. We have some questions. I'll begin with Delegate Ruth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Delegate, for bringing this bill, and I love that you're thinking about how to ensure that people have, marketable skills when they re-enter society. I just wondered, have you had a conversation with AFSCME or any of the building trade unions to see if they have concerns or if this works with?
The last time that I spoke with them, they were pretty much excited that I put the bill last year, but I haven't spoke to anybody this year. But I'm sure that we could collaborate together.
Thank you.
Delegate Siliberti.
Madam Chair, I'm having a deja vu moment here.
Okay.
Don't we have a bill like this, or did we have a bill like this similar to last year, and did it pass?
We had a bill like this, but there was supposed to be a discussion about it. We never did get to discussion. So I'm looking forward to getting to home plate this year.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Delegate Crutchfield.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you, Delegate Metzger, for bringing this bill. I do like the bill. I mean, the intentions are there, definitely all positive. But I guess I want to find out, have you had any direct discussions with the Department of Public Safety and Corrections to understand how their current workforce release program operates and whether this can operate under that auspices?
Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am, last year they came and we talked and they just had a little concerns how to work that out. But Department of Public Works has all of these funds available to hire the people, but they don't have anybody to hire. So this would make it so much easier to hire them because they come to them.
Understood. The other question I guess I have is this supposed to be a program that you would want to see to operate in both the female and male?
Yes, absolutely,
prisons?
absolutely.
Okay.
It's you can't have one without the other. Let me just say it that way.
And the only reason why I ask that is because there really isn't the structure, in particular in the female areas, to actually work. And maybe even our ombudsman can speak to that a little bit, in that the women's pre-release has nothing that is available to allow for, and Ms. Pack even may be able to speak to that, that would allow for women to actually be able to go out and participate in any kind of apprenticeship programs, nor work release at this point in time. So, maybe the two of them can speak to that. But what I'd like to see mostly is that there's an attempt to at least marry up with the services that are currently there and to use these services as well. But anyway, I'll ask them
I
to
think
speak to that.
you're on to a great point, and I appreciate that. And I feel like that I need to say this first of all. Mm-hmm. One of my best mechanics is a woman, tremendous mechanic, and I watch car shows all the time. And I watch these two ladies. They can tear apart a car in 32 seconds almost. But anyway, I'll let them share that.
So in response to that question, thank you, there's a definite inequity among opportunities for women at MCIW versus the men in the other facilities of DPSCS. However, I believe, and we just sort of had a little discussion right here, that this would help resolve some of those inequities.
Yes. You had asked a little bit about whether the current work release infrastructure would be able to carry this. Yes, it would, depending on what the job was. There are certain regulations, and this is something, if you listen to some of the recorded meetings of the Prison Education Delivery Reform Commission, you can get more into some of those conversations. As long as they go to a fixed location. That is one of the barriers, is if somebody is working in construction, it's a problem if they're moving from house to house. If somebody is working at an auto repair shop, though, and there is auto shop, there's diesel mechanics, they can do that through the work release program. And that work release program is equally administered in the male and female facilities. But what we lack at MCIW, and when I was there and still today, is the opportunity. You have Panera Bread and you have Burger King.
Right.
And what we need is this bill that's going to bring us these rich opportunities.
Thank you.
And if I may add, through ABC and our chapters throughout the state and our investment into Project Jumpstart, this bill aligns great with that, with returning citizens into the workforce and the opportunity it brings to a productive workforce and the opportunity to meeting talent to where we need it in the trades.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Delegate Schmidt.
Thank you, Chair. Quick question, Delegate. Did you bring this before the Judiciary Committee last year? Do I remember this bill?
Yes.
And we had a chance with the committee to attend the Baltimore City Central booking and then also to go to the trade department, I guess they would call it, across the street, where they actually have some of this offered. Is this a program we're looking to maybe expand that? Or tell me more about how you
Work
can
together,
put this into place.
Bring the apprenticeships in, because most of the time they don't have the apprenticeships. When they come out, they really have a certificate that stewardship made a real attempt to become a plumber.
So Baltimore City is doing it, but others
No,
are not? Okay.
they're not doing it.
They're not doing it. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Delegate. Delegate Sample Hughes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Delegate, for the bill. I see how you fell in love with it, because it certainly has many components that I can see beneficial overall, to the good of this state regarding the fiscal side, because people can come out and be taxpayers, et cetera. I wanted to just ask you a couple of things. The letter from the Department of Budget and Management certainly outlines their concerns about the fiscal challenges there, but it speaks also to the skill set and some of the certifications and things of that nature. And I can't recall, but did they provide a letter last year when you brought this bill forward? And being they have sent this letter now, have you already addressed some of those issues that they referenced, so we can, move the needle forward? And the last thing I'll say, I attempted the wastewater treatment operator program to come to fruition down at ECI, and it's been many a years working with public safety on that. And at this point, my advocate kind of has pulled back, like I think they're exhausted. So I appreciate the bill, but I'm just concerned about whether or not these skills concerns have been addressed.
To your second point, with the wastewater, that is a tremendous skill set, because those folks can come out apprentice with a, I forget the title, but they can come out making $80,000 a year to start. The first part is that I cannot recall if they came out last year in support, or most of the times the state government agencies send a letter of information. They don't really go into detail to support or non-support. So, but I don't recall what they, I'm getting 72 and the memory forgot me.
Well, the letter.
I got more days behind me than I got in front of me.
I understand. So the Department of Budget and Management, if you get a chance to look at it, just see if you can answer some of those questions regarding the skills that have various requirements, and just wanted to,
I
see
think
if
the
they meet all
technical
of
can be
those.
worked out.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Delegate, I want to thank you for this bill, and I have a very soft spot in my heart for anything related to helping people get into the skilled trades. I think I make no secret about that. So this is really good to hear. And it's great to see this model, I think, being introduced in this conversation, because there's some phenomenal models across the country with partnership with apprenticeship readiness and apprenticeship programs, specifically with folks behind the wall. So this is great that we're having this conversation again here. I did want to ask for just a clarifying question. Is this legislation focusing on establishing like a pre-apprenticeship program, and then when they leave from behind the wall, then the idea is that they would go into a registered apprenticeship program?
If they're in the facility for like a year, they will get, like if they choose to be a plumber, they'll have a plumber's certificate.
Okay.
If they're in for 5 years, they can get every one of them. Mm-hmm. But in partnership, I wanted this to be across the state. And truthfully, ma'am, this can be a model for the entire United States judicial system. I truly believe that.
Okay. And then I guess the question would be, so if they are there for 5 years, and say, for instance, they're leaving with a plumbing certificate, does it mean they're leaving as a licensed plumber?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, got it. And then so they would be able to have all of the required hours they need to become a licensed plumber in that timeline?
For an example, when you go through an apprenticeship program, if you go through the plumber, you get the thing that says, I've been
I know how it works.
Yeah, you know.
I don't want to mean to be rude. I do know how it works, but I don't want you to spend that time
But just for an
there.
example, if they come out and they have a plumbers and electricians, so carpenters and the HVAC, they can go take their entire certificates and go to their home improvement commission and become a home improvement contractor.
Okay. All right, well, I think there's some things we could work on with this bill, so looking forward to more conversation. Thank you for bringing the bill, Delegate Metzger. I want to thank your panel for being here today, and for the advocacy that you do on behalf of folks behind and outside the wall and their families. This is a really important conversation. This is very important conversation in terms of not only recidivism, but just as we continue to help families become whole again and build wealth and economic security. I believe there's some individuals that are joined with us today that are deep advocates for this bill, and I think the Delegate Metzger wanted to acknowledge them, as would I. So if you could please stand today if you are here in support of the bill as an impacted individual. Thank you for being with us today. We appreciate you so much. Thank you. Okay, with that, that concludes our hearing on HB 194. We'll move along next to Delegate Pastor with HB 108. And I believe, hi Delegate Pastor.
Hello,
I have
good
Anthony
afternoon.
Mohammed also joining.
Who do you want up here first? How many people? I don't care.
Okay, you may begin. Thank you. Good to see you.
Thank you. And good afternoon, Chair Wells, Vice Chair Kerr, and members of the Government Labor Elections Committee. I'm Delegate Cheryl Pasteur, and I'm here to ask for your support for House Bill 108 to establish the Release Preparation Program. This program will provide formerly incarcerated individuals access to state correctional facilities for the purpose of assisting incarcerated individuals with release preparations. The bill also expands the purpose of the Cannabis Regulation and Enforcement Fund to support the release preparation program if needed. The Division of Corrections has full control over who gets access to interact with incarcerated individuals. But grassroots reentry organizations have expressed challenges accessing and providing services to them. The division has, however, formed and operated volunteer programs that support those behind the walls and formerly incarcerated individuals beyond the walls. This bill goes a step further by setting protocols for allowing formerly incarcerated individuals to enter the facilities and be a part of the preparation for release. This bill was inspired by several members of groups such as Living Experiences and We Are Us, who desire to build a set protocols for supporting those behind the walls who are near release, and also to codify their work and that of the Secretary. The bill's purpose is to engage in authentic conversations between people who have shared experiences about their inter- and intrapersonal skills and attitudes when entering the new normal. Systems offer preparation for physical release, but not release to that new normal that is about what gives a person a sense of being emotionally understood and valued. One of the letters of support for this bill noted, formerly incarcerated people who have experienced peer support have expressed that lived experiences of incarceration was the most relevant and applicable experience for their goal of not recidivating. Without legislation that establishes protocols for the Department of Corrections to permit formerly incarcerated individuals to enter correctional facilities for this purpose, access is not guaranteed. My cross-filer, Senator Sidnor, and I have received letters of support and recommended amendments from both the Attorney General's office and the Department of Corrections, which we appreciate and will address. Please note that the Legislative Black Caucus has accepted this as one of its priorities. These lived experiences assistance programs must be codified so that political and personnel shifts do not cancel them as in the past. We must embrace the work of these groups and corrections if we really want to reduce recidivism, support our youth, and make our communities safer by nurturing a more inclusive society. I encourage the committee to issue a favorable report for House Bill 108. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. We'll begin on this end. If you could state your name
My name is Gordon Pack. Although I'm involved in a lot of committees and councils, I'm sorry. Oh, let's see if we
We
can get to
need you to use a microphone so everyone can hear you.
Oh.
Thank you.
All right, my name is Gordon Pack. Although I'm involved in a lot of commissions and councils and organizations that's working in this particular space, I take a great deal of pride in being someone who is working on reentry. One of my main jobs is helping people get employed when they get out of prison. And a big stigma that's there is that we have collateral damage from that conviction. A lot of times people don't have that opportunity to go before somebody and express themselves and have that opportunity to have a job available because of the record gets in the way. But a bigger issue is that people are not prepared to be released. Everybody goes in, but people aren't prepared because they've been away for so long. They think that everything they knew before they got there will be available when they get out, and that's not the reality. So a lot of emphasis is being placed on people being provided with things when they get out of prison, reentry services, but the reality is no time and effort is being placed to preparing people for that exit. So I believe that having some type of funding for DPSCS to provide that type of program would be very helpful for people coming out of prison. I'm a formerly incarcerated person myself. I know how difficult it is, and I know that without that focus, people fall short. They're so worried about trying to survive the stay. They just want to get out. They don't recognize the importance of vital records because in prison, all you need is your ID tag, prison ID tag, to get anything you need. But they don't think about Social Security cards, MVA IDs, birth certificates. They don't think about trades. People aren't getting that. And the only way to make sure it gets done is if we can get funding for a program that can do that to cut down on recidivism and help our society grow and become a little better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pack. Ms. Wilson?
Thank you. So I'm going to differ a little bit. They do think about it. When we go into facilities, again, across the state, we hear from incarcerated individuals that they don't have what they need to reenter the community successfully. Reentry starts at the point of entry into the Department of Public Safety, the day you enter. And this bill seeks to give an opportunity not only to those who are formerly incarcerated, but those currently incarcerated, that they can take their shared lived experiences, those who are who have successfully reintegrated into the community can offer inspiration and motivation. I have seen this firsthand. I have seen it through the Lived Experience Group, who has gone into facilities, and the reaction that they've received. I think it's so powerful. I think it should be a part of the DJS experience, quite honestly. And this bill seeks to establish the funding that's necessary. It seeks to guarantee access. It seeks to set standards, because you don't want to have one standard at JCI and another standard at MCIW. We need consistency, we need the support, and this will offer also motivation and just create vision, because so often incarcerated individuals don't have a vision because they haven't seen it lived out. This creates that opportunity. Thank you, and I have to apologize, the wrong testimony was submitted, but I'm just speaking from what I know in terms of experience.
You can email it to us after.
I will do that.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Mr. Sturr?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and everybody else who's here today.
If you could just bring the microphone as close to you as possible. Thank
I'm
you.
not usually accused of being too soft.
With this one, I promise you it's possible.
Yes, thank you. My name is Dr. Stewart. I'm chair of the Prison Education Delivery System Reform Commission. I'm taking a little bit different viewpoint on this bill. I totally support it, but a little different viewpoint on why I'm supporting it. My opinion today does not represent the views of the commission, because we have not voted on this, but I'm sure many of our members, some of whom are here up here at the panel, would support it. My support is based on more than 50 years working in criminal justice as a teacher, educator and correctional administrator, and a professor in Maryland, and working for the Federal Bureau of Prisons. As a Maryland Correctional Education Administrator, I saw how effectively we were able to hire and train high school graduates as tutors to assist in academic classrooms. Many of those who worked as tutors were released and continued to work with other formerly incarcerated individuals who had not completed high school. We provided classroom space in some state office buildings and never encountered any issues. More recently, I've observed how effective peer recovery specialists have been at one of our Jessup institutions. The warden testified how effective they were in not only counseling their peers, but also in assisting security staff in cooling down tense situations. In summary, my experience and action research that I've seen have taught me the value of the incarcerated and formerly incarcerated individuals can be in the rehabilitative process. Many of them become positive forces who communicate effectively with their peers. Of course, formerly incarcerated individuals would be subject to all the screening and investigation used to hire anyone who works in correctional environment. I believe most correctional officials will be very supportive in the employment of formerly incarcerated individuals in their facilities. I appreciate the time to be here with you today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Love?
All right, good afternoon. Davon Love, Director of Public Policy, Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle. This legislature, over the past several years, has passed legislation to expand opportunities for reentry. Think about things like the Second Look Act and a variety of other parole initiatives. One of the things that's important is to make sure that there are robust infrastructure to ensure successful reentry. One of the things that I'm clear about is that much of the work in Baltimore City to reduce the crime and violence in Baltimore City has enlarged, the credit for that is largely those networks of formerly incarcerated individuals, right? And so a lot of the recruitment of those that go out into the community, that can engage communities that many of us wouldn't be able to engage to address violence have come from this network. And so the dual purpose of both ensuring reentry and also powering many of the efforts that have been successfully able to address many of the problems that have been long standing in our community. And so my support for this piece of legislation is in that it's important that organizations that have been doing work for many years and engaging those that are formerly incarcerated are able, as my fellow panelists have already said, be able to go back behind the walls and provide the kind of quality instruction and support that only those who are formerly incarcerated and specialize in that can provide to those behind the walls. One thing that I want to address in terms of specifically on the bill, some amendments that came from the Attorney General and that will be friendly sponsor amendments, is that it talks about a list of formerly incarcerated individuals that will be made available to the public to ensure accountability. One of the things we want to add is that a list of individuals and organizations that are led by formerly incarcerated folks, because some people differ in terms of how much of their own personal information they want out into the public. So if there's an organization that is led by those that are formerly incarcerated, it provides just an additional level of accountability for those who may struggle for having their individual name put in such a public context. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Love. Mr. Muhammad?
I'm gonna just back up so you can get to it. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, members of the committee, and to our bill sponsor here, the Honorable Delegate Cheryl Pasteur. I'm honored to be here with you all this morning. My name is Anthony Muhammad. I am a community engagement specialist and reentry coordinator for the We Are Us organization. The We Are Us organization is a community engagement organization out of Baltimore City that provides a host of reentry services and supports to the community. I've submitted written testimony, so I won't cover everything, but the single point that I will highlight for this committee is this fact here. There's been a lot of conversation concerning who deserves the credit for 3 years of consecutive historic reductions in homicides and non-fatal shootings out of Baltimore City. And what our Governor Westmore and what our Baltimore City Mayor both have been very vocal about is that community engagement is at the core of that success. And at the core of the community engagement component, as Davon so eloquently stated, are returning citizens, all right? And we believe, and in fact, we know that we can do more if this group of individuals had access to enter the Department of Correction and coordinate reentry services, release services through a program before they are actually released. So there's always been a nexus, always been a connection to what is going on behind the prison walls and what is happening actually on the streets of our community. So our objective is to navigate that terrain and provide the services that are needed before they are actually released in the community. And we think that we can have an even greater success if given that access without the restrictions and limitations that are currently in place. And for those reasons, I urge a favorable report.
Thank you, Mr. Muhammad. Ms. Pack? Yeah, a little musical chair is perfect. Thank you.
Hi, I am Ann Pack again for this wonderful bill that Delegate Pastor put in. As I mentioned before, I co-founded Prepare, the nonprofit that I am director of advocacy for while I was incarcerated, and have scaled across the state for the 3 years and change since my release. It is incredibly important for people with lived experience to go and do this work behind the walls. We know what it's like to be there. We know how we made our own successful reentry, and that gives us what we need to take the hand of others and guide them through their reentry process. Now, I started learning about this while I was still on the inside, and I've continued to help others. And just making organizations like Prepare a fixture in public safety where we are part of a partnership, a collaboration, because we've all got the same goal, right? We all want the person to come home and be successful, contribute to the community, not go back to prison. Everybody's got those same goals. So when we build this collaboration and we formalize this in statute, because we're already doing it, we're working together to some degree, but all of that is really informal, and informal stuff can get blown away with the turn of an administration. So what we're asking for, what I'm hoping for, is that this formal structure can be built so that while I'm doing my work this year, I know that it's not going to get blown away next year. Now, the one thing that I have seen is some people have said, why cannabis, why this money? And as somebody who has watched communities be ravaged by the war on drugs and seen how many people were behind the walls because of that, I think really a lot of this newfound money that's coming in needs to look back at mitigating some of the harm that's caused to the people I left behind the walls, a lot of whom were there because they had a small charge that snowballed and left them incarcerated for a long time. So I thank you, and I urge a favorable report.
Thank you, Ms. Pack. We have one virtual witness, Mr. Edward Kenny.
I'm working on getting my video up. Hang on 1 second.
Yes.
Oh, it says it's disabled. Oh, there we go.
Hi, we can hear you, just
Thank
so you know.
Good afternoon. This is Edward Kenny from the Office of the Public Defender. I, along with everyone else on this panel, strongly urge, on behalf of the Public Defender, a favorable report on this bill. I don't want to echo a lot of what other people have said. This bill is potentially tremendously important for people that are, on the road to rehabilitation and reentry, and there's no doubt about that. I'm a post-conviction attorney, and so I'm sort of coming at this from a slightly different perspective as someone who has fought and sometimes successfully gotten an incarcerated individual to be let out by either a judge or a commissioner. And when you've done this work that I've done, what you find is that a lot of these people really want to give back. They want to support other returning citizens any way they can. And what this bill does, it seems to me, is helps them do that. And I think that any bill that helps people give back is a bill that's worthy of support. So that's why I urge a favorable report, and that's why the Public Defender does as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kenny. Okay, seeing if there's any questions. I do not see, Delegate Tomlinson. How do I always miss you? I don't understand.
It's either that or you mix me up with Delegate Schindler. Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, nice to see you, Delegate Pastor, my old judiciary friend. Got Stu over here. I've got a question for either you or I think is it Mr. Love in the corner there. You brought up the amendments. I just wanted to clarify about the part you mentioned about releasing the names out to the public. So are you saying you're going to not release names out to the public, instead you're going to release organizations, or you'll only release names if they want it?
In addition to, so there's some people that may want to do work as an individual There's some folks that may want to do work as a part of an organization.
Okay,
Right,
so you're only
that's-
going to put the names out there
if that's the way that
if
they
they
want
want
to
it.
enter, or if they want to enter as an organization to do that.
Got it.
And know that some people who've had their violations expunged, they want their names not to be included because the public won't know that the violations have been expunged.
Yeah.
Right.
Makes sense. Cool. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you so much for the bill, Delegate Pastor. And thank you to all the panelists and presenters today. We appreciate you coming down to Annapolis.
Thank you.
Testifying. Thank you, Mr. Kinney. We will call up our next bill sponsor for HB 22, Delegate Schindler. That guy. Not that guy.
I'm still.
Hello.
You're speaking on all the bills today.
You can start.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, honorable colleagues of the GLEE Committee. For the record, I'm Matthew J. Schindler, and I'm here to testify on House Bill 22. House Bill 22 is very simple. It simply ensures and codifies that when an individual is released from incarceration, they leave with something fundamental to successful reentry: a valid Maryland Motor Vehicle Association issued identification card or driver's license. This bill is about removing a needless barrier at the very moment that we ask people to succeed. Without state-issued identification, returning citizens are effectively locked out of our society. They cannot apply for jobs, secure housing, access health care, enroll in education or workforce training programs, or even obtain many basic social services. We release individuals back into our communities and expect them to become stable, productive residents, yet deny them the most important document required to do so. That is not accountability. That is setting them up for failure. This isn't a handout. It's a practical, common-sense investment in incomes we all want: fewer repeat offenses, stronger workforce participation, and safer communities. Other states, including California, Texas, Illinois, and North Carolina, have already recognized that identification upon release is a best practice. Research constantly shows that access to ID dramatically improves a person's ability to engage with employment, housing, and support systems. The U.S. Department of Justice has identified ID assistance programs as an effective tool in reducing recidivism by stabilizing individuals during the most vulnerable period that they have after their release. Maryland has long prided itself on smart, evidence-based policy. HB 22 aligns with that tradition. If we are serious about reentry, rehabilitation, and public safety, then we must ensure that people leave incarceration with the basic tools required to succeed. With that, I ask a favorable report on House Bill 22.
Thank you, Mr. Schindler. We'll begin. I would have started there, but she's not at the microphone, so Ms. Wilson, I will begin with you again if you're
Thank you
okay
so
with that.
much.
Thank you.
So I say here again, repeating myself about the fact that reentry begins at the time one enters the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services. This bill, I think, is so important because it seeks to ensure that the paperwork and identification for IIs, incarcerated individuals, help them to be prepared to reenter society with an advantage versus a disadvantage. Over the last year and a half, we have entered facilities, and this has been a constant complaint. I just can't even express the impact on IIs. And when they don't have the proper documentation, as already stated, it creates barriers. It makes it more difficult to obtain employment, housing, and all the necessary things to reduce the likelihood of recidivism. If you have not done so, I would recommend that you take advantage of the opportunity to participate in the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Service simulation. I call it, it's not the name, I'm sure, but I call it the reentry monopoly because it demonstrates the challenge every incarcerated individual faces when they reenter the community. One of the most difficult, if not the most difficult challenge, is not having the proper documentation. I will struggle to begin the process of successful adjustment to their reentry. When incarcerated individuals are required to wait until they enter the community, then unless they have strong family ties and support, it reduces the likelihood of success. Sometimes a lack of proper identification and understanding for the process negatively impacts IIs. And so I urge for a favorable result.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Mr. Speaks?
Yes.
Yep, good to see you again.
Yes. Hello, everybody. My name is Terry Speaks. I work for Alpha Justice. I'm here on behalf of Alpha Justice, but I'm also here as an impacted individual that was released from prison 2 years ago. 2 years ago when I came home, I didn't have ID. I didn't have a Social Security card, and I didn't have a birth certificate. Although I applied for my birth certificate and Social Security card during COVID, they never sent it, right? So I went through my case manager. They said it was a backlog, people were sick, or whatever the case might be. I get out, I don't have documentation. I was embarrassed. I'm a 49-year-old man. I don't have ID. I went to go try to get an apartment. You don't have ID, you don't have no history, you don't have none of these things. So I'm here in support of this bill because I believe that the Department of Correction, they have the ability to do it. Sometimes they say they're understaffed or whatever the case might be. To me, it's just negligence. But at the same time, I know how important it is for individuals such as myself that's coming home to have the proper paperwork, because at the end of the day, this is one less barrier that you have to go through in order to transform your life and become a member of society again. So I know it would have done a great service to me to be able to have these documentations upon my release, because I wouldn't have to run around and try to get money to pay for a birth certificate. I wouldn't have to run around to get money to pay for an ID. You know, my driver's license was there, but if the case management staff in the Department of Corrections would have just do their due diligence, I would have had it in my base file upon my release. So I'm in favor of this bill, Bill 00022. And I urge y'all to give a favorable reply, because it does help, and it takes away these barriers that we face as individuals coming back into society. So I urge y'all to get this bill a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Ethan Lowen.
Yes.
Okay.
Good afternoon. I'm Ethan Lowen, and I support HB 022. I volunteer with an organization that works with individuals returning from incarceration. In a world where recidivism is 49% at best, and most programs bring recidivism down to 40%, the group I volunteer for has a recidivism rate of 12%. My organization is not the only one to produce these numbers. I have noticed, though, that of those that do, we share the same 4 principles. First principle is that we apply pressure to the participants in our programs. It is nuanced. It is balanced with a family spirit and grace, but there are expectations and consequences. The second principle is simplicity. Participants are frequently in a high-stress state. Therefore, however many superfluous details and busy work that can be removed, the higher the success rate. The third principle is instruction. We introduce a set of life lessons that are so basic to the human condition that participants are frequently able to take over the conversation and delve deep as a group with little guidance from us, the facilitators. And that is when the magic occurs. As participants realize that they themselves are discovering solutions to the insecurities and fears that have plagued them, that they have always had the ability to live a life free of the suffering they cause themselves and others. It is a moment that changes lives like few experiences can. Then there is the fourth principle, which is support. Part of that is getting those who need it, group housing and transportation to a job. Support also means being part of a team. What HB 22 does is to strengthen principle 2, simplicity. By removing an additional piece of busy work, it allows the participants to focus on the other principles that much faster. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lowen. Ms. Smoot, good afternoon.
Oh, thanks. Good afternoon, sorry.
It's all right.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Julia Smoot. I am here representing a statewide reentry organization founded by formerly incarcerated individuals where we offer high-level mentoring and coaching to currently incarcerated individuals as well as formerly incarcerated individuals. I myself am a returning citizen, and so I am in favor of support of the House Bill 22. So one of the biggest barriers to a successful reentry, as many of us said, is obtaining identification. As aforementioned, it prevents stable housing, access to health insurance, and basically it's step one from the day out. Under current Maryland law, the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services is required to give you an identification card that meets secondary identification standards used by the NVA. The intention is that the release, as often called an R card, can be redeemed at the NVA to support an individual's application for a full state-issued ID. However, the reality on the ground does not meet the intent. While the R card is recognized as secondary identification, individuals must still go through the full NVA process, which requires multiple documents, proof of residency, birth certificate, social security card, and an in-person appointment. Where my reentry program is located is about 25 minutes closest to the NVA. For that, with our public transportation, is probably around a 4-hour round trip. So if we're sending someone to the NVA for a bus ticket, that's a whole day that they're using out of their reentry process. And all of us know the first 48 hours after reentry is the most critical. So I strongly urge you guys to move in favor of House Bill 22. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smoot. We had one virtual, Mr. Martin Mitchell, who I believe is not with us today, not able to join us, I should say. And we have one favorable with amendment, so we will take a round of questions from the committee before we have that individual speak. Delegate Crutchfield.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And Madam Ombudswoman, you raised something that I had totally forgot about. I attended the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services simulation this summer. So what you reminded me of is the fact that there are 2 additional pieces of ID that I think should be possibly added to this, Delegate Schindler, and if you would be opposed to possibly adding in birth certificates and social security cards.
That would absolutely be a friendly amendment.
Thank you. Delegate Wu.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Delegate, for bringing forward this bill. I kind of first surprised they're not doing this. So second is that I want to see whether they're open to some ideas. For example, this should be free of charge, right? I didn't see their tax there. I definitely want them give them for free, right? If you charge them money, then probably will not do it. So the other one I would say is the expiration date. Sometimes I look at the text that you return their card that may be expired very soon, right? I want them, if that their previous identification card or driver license expire very soon, they should renew that automatically before their release. I think that too will facilitate the transaction from the correction facility to their normal life. If we can put some tax to be mandatory, free, and then make sure it's not expiring, for example, 5 years or 10 years, that would be really helpful.
Thank you, Delegate Wu. I agree.
Thank you, Delegate Terraza.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for this bill. Just really quickly, it's probably clarified somewhere here, but I just want to make sure I understand. They're returning the ID that was taken when they were incarcerated, or does this also include new? Do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Thank you, Delegate. It's a good question. So this does 2 things. One, which I think for the most part is the practice. If someone's been incarcerated and they came in with a driver's license, it would return that to them. The other piece is to ensure that before leaving prison, that they are issued a Maryland Motor Vehicle Association issued ID before they leave.
Okay, and that would preclude, I just want to make sure that the language is tight enough to preclude what your other, I think it was Ms. Smoot, the R card, like I just want to make sure that wouldn't somehow satisfy we don't want it to satisfy the requirement in the bill. So I just want to make sure it's clear enough in the bill to do that.
I would lean on expertise. The way it was written, we did want to make sure that that was not, that we actually got a proper either, Maryland identification card from the MVA or a driver's license in lieu of that R card or some other form of, temporary identification.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Could you clarify what an R card is? I'm assuming the letter R, is that what we're,
They give you
please?
an ID. They give you an ID, and it's like a hole punch, but it has an R in it, right? So that means release, right? That's the R stands for release. So technically, you can't take it to many places and do anything with it because it's been, and it has, even though it has maybe the Department of Correction or something on it, you can't do too many things with it because it's a release. And like if you try to cash a check with it, you can't do it. So that's what the R stands for.
Okay, so it's not considered a valid ID?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for clarifying, Mr. Speaks. Delegate Kerr?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Delegate Schindler, it would seem to me that if an individual's been incarcerated for a period of years, that ID would be no longer valid. But my question actually is, there's no fiscal implication for this bill? There's no barrier to doing this? Why do we need a law to do this? Why can't it just be done?
That's a great question, Vice Chair. Thank you for the question. Right now, the MVA and the Department of Corrections do have an MOU, so they have the capability to do this now. However, it is not codified and it's not required.
And if I may add, it is not occurring. We go into facilities on a regular basis, and it is one of the main complaints we receive. They fill out the paperwork, and they never receive the identification. Or and I've spoken to those who have been released, and upon release did not receive them.
We've actually paid for IDs at our organization. So.
Oh, Delegate Sample Hughes.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing the bill. Thank you for the education on this subject today. So would the Maryland Department of Health also have to have an MOU with the Department of Corrections to get the birth certificate that was suggested? Or would this bill take care of that agency, Department of Social Security Administration as well?
So as the bill is currently written, it just addresses the Motor Vehicle Association.
Right.
If we add that amendment, we would have to explore that and see.
And get a separate amendment?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no more questions for this panel. Oh, I can't see it. Delegate Klippinger.
Good afternoon. So if someone has received a sentence of a year or more in a state or local correction facility, is that active incarceration or is that the suspended sentence?
So technically, if you have a year and more inside of a Department of Correction, that's
Not between a year and 18 months, which is why local is in there, because they can serve a sentence locally between a year and 18 months.
yeah, at the county jail or over at city jail. So technically, it's probably a year and over, or 18 months and over, as far as how the Department of Corrections determine your sentence. Like if you get over a year, you usually go into the Department of Corrections. You can do up to a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess my broader question is, if somebody received a sentence that was 18 months suspended, they're not actually going into the jail or going into, then this probably wouldn't apply at all.
Right.
I guess the question about the language that I have about the language into the bill is it's not clear whether they have to be serving an active year sentence. Did they get 5 years to suspend all but one or something along those lines? And then I'll go a little further. So let's say that they were convicted of driving under the influence, and this would help them get their driver's license. What if they had a restriction on their driver's license that would prevent them from getting it because of prior alcohol convictions? Would this supersede the MVA and the administrative remedies that are out there?
I'll add one thing and then I will defer. But the bill is written as such that it could either be a driver's license or a Maryland state identification. So I would think it would be the latter in that situation.
I wonder whether you need some language that makes it clear that if they had some kind of additional requirement through MVA, if they were prohibited because of multiple DUIs, for example, that they needed to, or they were required to go through the medical advisory board or something along those lines, that perhaps this would not apply to them. But it also strikes me that if it's 1 year of active time, you're going to have a number of situations, if it's nonviolent crimes, where they're going to be up for parole after 3 or 4 months, even at a local facility. So they're going to need to start working on this 2 months before they actually get a sentence. So I don't know. I wonder if the timing is a little bit off, and I think that there needs to be some language that makes sure that MVA restrictions aren't superseded by this.
I appreciate that, and I believe the person that is favorable with amendments has something to that effect as well. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. We will move on to favorable with amendments. Is Mr. Sexton, John Sexton here? Is that you walking up from the back, Mr. Sexton? Okay, perfect. Just making sure. Hi. Good
Hey,
afternoon.
how we doing?
Wonderful. Good to see
Will
you.
you start?
Yep.
Ms. Chair, thank you, committee members, for allowing me to speak today. My name is John Sexton. I just got out of jail about 3 months ago after serving 37 years. I can tell you from the basis of everybody that I know and all the groups that I attend that have people just like me that have gotten out not too long ago, the number one problem, bar none, is it takes so long to get your documentations and your social security card and your driver's license or your identification. The process could be taken care of, like, I don't know what caused them to make this bill, but all the sponsors of this bill, Wu and Schindler and Terrassa, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. But it's a no-brainer. I'll just use me as an example. I got out on November 10th. It took me until January 13th to get an appointment with the Social Security Administration. Plus, when they arrested me, I did have a driver's license and I did have a Social Security card at the time, and they could have given that back to me. And that would have been very helpful. And like they're all saying, I had a job lined up waiting for me as soon as I got out. Couldn't get it until I got the Social Security card and identification card. I had housing and all those things lined up, but you can't do that until you get the identification card and the Social Security card and all those things that go along with that. And this is the number one problem, and it's a no-brainer because when they want to do it, they can do it. When the DOC and the MVA and the Social Security Administration put their minds together, they do it, and they have done it before, and the process is there. They know how to do it because they've done it before. It's just that if you don't tell them they have to do it, then they lollygag and they mess around. I was told that the Social Security card was sitting in the file waiting for me when I got out. Well, when we go to get out, it's not in there. So I would implore you, I'm begging you, please put this out for a favorable amendment, please. I mean, favorable. Oh, the amendment, I would urge you to, it said 6 months. They want to start the process 6 months beforehand. I'm urging you to change the amendment to a 1 year. It's going to take them that long to get all the ducks in a row. It's a long process, especially when you're in there for case management. So please consider changing that 6 months to a year prior. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sexton. Okay, seeing no further questions, that concludes the bill hearing for HB 22. Delegate Schindler, we have your next bill, HB 99. And your sponsor panel is Justin Fiore, Mr. Bachmeiler, and Nicholas. I apologize, Nicholas, I can't pronounce your last name, so if you could please pronounce it for us. We appreciate it. Thank you.
So, Wojtek. Again, thank you, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee. I hope you're not tired of me yet. I am, for the record again, Delegate Matthew J. Schindler, and I'm here to testify on behalf of House Bill 99. House Bill 99 would provide municipalities greater control over zoning decisions in areas that have recently been annexed. Under current state law, county governments retain final authority to approve or deny a municipality's request to rezone newly annexed land. If express county approval is not grounded, a municipality is prohibited from rezoning that land for 5 years when the proposed zoning differs from the county's authorized use or allows a substantially higher density. In practice, this framework allows annexation approval to be used as a leverage tool, or at times even a punitive measure, rather than a planning safeguard. As a result, municipal planning efforts can be stalled, public-private partnerships become difficult or impossible under restrictive and inflexible timelines that may have little to do with sound land use planning. HB 99 refocuses annexation policy on what it should be, ensuring that annexation aligns with adopted county comprehensive plans. The bill allows a comprehensive plan for land use, whether adopted by the county or the municipality, to guide zoning decisions in annexed areas. Comprehensive plans provide a more detailed, thoughtful, and forward-looking analysis than reliance on county zoning classifications alone, and they're better suited to evaluating appropriate land use annexation. County and municipal governments should be partners in growing our economies and strengthening our communities. By removing the ability to use zoning approval as leverage, while still requiring consistency with comprehensive plans, this bill promotes collaboration, predictability, and responsible growth. It also better equips municipalities to pursue economic development, housing opportunities, and community revitalization within their corporate boundaries. With that, and for those reasons, I respectfully ask for a favorable report on House Bill 99.
Thank you, Delegate Schindler. And witnesses, let me just remind you, you have 2 minutes for your testimony. And welcome back, Justin. Let's hear from you next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, committee members. Justin Fiore here on behalf of the Maryland Municipal League in support of House Bill 99. You have experts in planning up here, so I'm going to keep it high level. There's a lot of talk in town about growth. We need to grow our way out of our budget concerns. We need to grow our housing stock, our population. Well, what you have before you is a smart growth bill. This is an area we are actively planning for growth, where we have capacity for essential services such as water and sewer. And I know we're going to have to talk about school capacity, but I think we also have to recognize that we only have so much control over where people choose to live. What we're talking about is meeting the demand of businesses and residents where they have demand currently. So this is really the opposite of sprawl. Once again, these aren't surprises. This is baked into 10-year planning documents. 10-year planning documents that required by state law have to have considerations for population growth projection. They have to have considerations for public school capacity, water and sewer capacity, public services. Infrastructure needs to accommodate growth. These are well-done plans, and so for these reasons, we would ask you to support House Bill 99.
Thank you. Stephen Bachmiller.
Thank you. Good afternoon, delegates. My name is Stephen Bachmiller. I serve as the City of Hagerstown's Deputy Director for Planning and Zoning Administration, and I have 23 years of senior level service, in addition to 12 years of additional service in other jurisdictions. And I'm a native of Delegate Ruth's district in Baltimore County. I have submitted a letter on the city's behalf with 8 additional letters of support from other municipalities. It will be self-explanatory when you and your staffs digest it. As a summary of that letter, the express approval provision upon annexation may have served its purpose at one time, but it is now obsolete. It is contrary to all tenets of smart planning principles and is the single biggest regulatory hindrance to meeting immediate market needs for affordable and workforce housing. For cities and towns with up-to-date comprehensive plans, it's an unnecessary roadblock in moving forward with those plans. Counties, cities, and towns are receiving direction from the state that steps must be taken to accelerate the construction of workforce housing to meet the current statewide shortfall. Bills have been introduced in the last session and in this session that are sweeping one-size-fits-all proposals, which you may later find produced unintended consequences. This proposal is surgical and it will produce immediate results. Hagerstown has lost quality development proposals over the last 20 years that could have resulted in the constructions of hundreds of good multifamily and townhouse units, but the projects were abandoned when it became apparent that express approval was not forthcoming from the county. We also have developments that have been annexed into the city and built within the city in recent years where the developers self-imposed on themselves a unit cap on their own projects to avoid asking for express approval. This causes even more units not to materialize and underutilizes the land most appropriate in entire counties for the most dense developments. You will see a wide range of statewide support of this bill from MML and cities and towns of varying sizes. Municipalities continue to weigh in on the bill. In short, it's time that the state's left hand coordinates with its right hand. If you want our jurisdictions to produce results to your call to improve the supply of workforce housing in the state, eliminating this barrier is critical to our ability to provide you expeditious results.
Thank you, Mr. Bachmiller. I think I'm also a native of Delegate Root's district. Mr. Wojtek.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nick Wojtek, Director of Infrastructure and Development for City of Salisbury on the Eastern Shore. Just coming here to support the bill as well. Currently, the zoning waiver requirement from the county is another obstacle in the annexation process that we undergo. It's already a very long and complicated process that often takes a year, oftentimes takes more than a year. I've only been here a year and a half, and there's some that have been dragged on since before I got to my job with Salisbury. So it's going to lead to a more regular process, more efficient development, and more local control for smarter growth that really makes sense. As has been mentioned, we already spend a lot of resources on these comprehensive plans that are meant to guide our municipal growth as required by the state and as updated every 10 years as required. And that's really the whole point, that we want to be able to follow these plans and not have to maybe rely on the county, who are great partners for us and I think share a lot of the goals we have for growth. But it just adds an administrative burden on both ends to have to go through this process. So for that reason, we think it's a good bill. Thank you.
All right. Are there any questions for this? Oh, Delegate Terraza.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you help me understand annexation in this case? So does this mean a piece of property is being annexed from the county into the city? Like, I guess I'm having sort of a baseline confusion about
Absolutely, Delegate. And I'll give you the dumb version, and I'll let the experts give you the smart version here if I don't quite cover it. But municipal annexation, to say, I'll use my home district as an example, the city of Hagerstown, if there is property that's contiguous next to the city boundaries, they can request to be annexed into the city. In which case they'd still be in the county, but the city can then annex them to become part of the municipality. But this what's happening here is if that zoning is different from what it was zoned in the county when it come into the city, or the density is different, there's a 5-year moratorium right now before any kind of development can be done.
I guess I'm confused about how it could be. So you're annexing it in. It doesn't have a classification in the city, like a land use classification in the city. How are those in? I feel like there's something basic I'm just not understanding. It might be like I have too much zoning information and like a little gap in it from.
What you have here is two different documents. You have your comprehensive plan for
Right.
both the county and the city, and then you also have the counties and cities zoning ordinances. The way it's currently set up, if someone attempts to annex into the city and they desire a zoning that is substantially different than what the existing county zoning is, that is when the county can impose the moratorium. So if, let's say a property is currently zoned in the county commercial, and they want to annex into the city residential, that's substantially different. So the county can say, well, okay, you can annex, but you're not going to develop the property for 5 years. So it's zoned commercial, and I'm using this as a generic example. It's zoned commercial in the county. They desire to develop it for residential within the city because the zoning is substantially changing, going from commercial as part of the county to residential as part of the city. That's when the county authority kicks in. And they can say, well, we don't think it's appropriate to do that, so we're not going to provide express approval, and you won't be able to develop that property for 5 years. And we actually have properties in Hagerstown that have annexed within the 5 years and are simply sitting around waiting for a clock to expire so they can develop.
Okay, so give me 1 second. So they're annexed in. So I understand all of what you just said, and this is very helpful. what does this have to do with the comprehensive plan? I understand the zoning's
Okay.
within the comprehensive plan. I spent 12 years doing zoning on the county council, but
Okay.
I'm not sure whose comprehensive plan are we talking about it having something to do with?
The way the state code was prior to 2006, and what this proposal actually goes back to the way it was before 2006, is the city would be obligated to assign it zoning that it matches either the city's comprehensive plan for its land use or the county's comprehensive plan, not taking into account the county's existing zoning. So if you have a piece of property, we would look at our comprehensive plan and say it's designated for business or residential or whatever. And we would also look at the county's comprehensive plan, business, residential, or whatever. And we would be limited to assigning zoning to it that matched one of those two plans, is my understanding of the process. Preferably it would be the city's comprehensive plan, but it does provide an option for administering the counties. You could have counties, existing county zoning, which does not necessarily match their comprehensive plan, especially a jurisdiction that has recently adopted a new comprehensive plan and hasn't updated their zoning yet. It does get quite complex.
Madam Chair, can I ask one last follow-up question, and then I guess I'll take it offline? When would you otherwise do, I do understand the point about the counties controlling the municipality, but when would you ever allow a zoning change to not match either of the comprehensive plans? So, I mean, the only thing I can think of is if you have a zoning category, you've now changed the comprehensive plan, but now you still want to zone it different than the comprehensive plan, either comprehensive plan?
That's actually an excellent question. It's possible that someone may apply to annex to the city and ask for a zoning that doesn't even match our comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan is a guide. As I understand it, the city council could entertain that zoning, but in that case, as the way the ordinance, or the bill is currently written, if we deviate from our comprehensive plan or the county's comprehensive plan, the county would still have that 5-year leverage if we deviate from our own comprehensive plan or the county's.
Okay, I really appreciate it. Thank you, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Absolutely. Okay, seeing no more questions for the sponsor panel, we do have a few more people that are here to speak that are favorable. I have Matthew Ross, and I have Valerie Feinberg. Don't know if they're here or not. Oh, I see Mr. Ross coming up.
I can start. Good afternoon, delegates. My name is Matthew Ross. I serve as a planner with the Hagerstown Department of Planning and Economic Development. We would like to offer insights on how counties in Maryland can view this legislation as constructive and in their interests. Counties and cities work together on land use planning through their respective comprehensive plans with community engagement at both levels. The city is within the county. City residents are county residents and they pay taxes to both. City land use planning supports appropriate growth and development, including affordable and workforce housing, which benefits the entire county. Both work cooperatively to ensure smart growth development, defining growth boundaries and planning infrastructure resources. In our case, Hagerstown provides its own municipal water, wastewater systems, and police and fire departments. Road improvements are usually the responsibility of developers at the time a project is processed with local jurisdiction. County planning for infrastructure is of limited concern. They also have the ability for infrastructure needs through the ability to plan for infrastructure needs through other tools, such as APFOs. In our case, Washington County recently adopted amendments to its APFO and excise tax ordinance to equalize the infrastructure cost impact of new development throughout the county and its municipalities. This is mostly for schools. Hagerstown did not object to this initiative. Municipalities are at a disadvantage regarding revenue sources authorized by the state. Because of this, new development is a critical source of revenue to fund necessary municipal services. Artificial barriers to that damage a municipality's ability to adequately fund necessary services. This results in more reliance on municipal property taxation of existing developments, which affect housing costs. Annexation is a tool for municipalities that is within a town's authority by state statute. It should be viewed by counties as routine and mutually beneficial. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions for this panel? Seeing none, thank you to the bill sponsor. We'll move on to, we have one unfavorable, Mr. Sanderson. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, committee members. I'm Michael Sanderson with the Maryland Association of Counties. If you'll allow me a moment, I have a little tingle being in this room because I cut my teeth professionally in this room, sitting right next to the chair when this was the Ways and Means Committee. And I wasn't talented enough to stick around with DLS. It was fiscal services at the time, so I had to find other employment and so forth. But love being here and really delighted to be with your committee back in familiar locations. So on behalf of MACO, I'm sorry I missed the briefing you all had earlier this week with nuts and bolts of county government and municipal government and so forth, and we're kind of back in that territory a little bit. Our concern with this bill kind of lies in sort of the differences of responsibility between municipal governments and county governments, and that really is the rub here. So some of your questions have already kind of gotten into the nuts and bolts of how these master plans interact and so forth, but I think this is one of these tricky areas with your partners in local government that has rested at something of an uneasy compromise. The last time this was a hot topic, when we had a white-hot real estate market back in the 2006, 7, 8, 9 stretch, the big debate about this 5-year rule was not whether we should wipe it out, but whether we needed to extend it further. The crisis in Maryland at that time was overeager developers looking all over the state to try and manufacture a new town by way of an annexation to either the city right next door or even down some long pipe stem 2.5 miles away, and we'll pretend we're part of that town, just so we can develop in an area where there's not enough infrastructure. An earlier witness talked about smart growth, and we've had decades of policy in Maryland about Maryland should be developing where we have the infrastructure to manage it. Now with water and sewer, that's a big part of that, and both municipal governments and county governments do water and sewer, so that's not really the rub here. The rub here, as you've heard, is about public schools.
I'll give you 20 more seconds.
Thank you so much. The reason you have the 5-year rule is so it's not too enticing for everybody who'd like to develop where we don't have capacity in the schools to pretend they're a town and do so.
Thank you. Delegate Terraza.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Sanderson. It's good to see you. So the idea is that you might have a school that's closed under APFA or what have you, and then they want to move into the city and then be able to build even though there's not school capacity.
That's exactly the real instance here. This is virtually all about school capacity. And when an area like the newly annexed area outside of Hagerstown or Salisbury you heard about, I don't know any of the details of the situations on the ground, but wherever this happens, an area becomes annexed in, and either the county and city agree upon the growth plan and everything's fine. You can do that today. Or if the county says we really don't have the capacity to grow there because we don't have the classroom space and we're going to overfill those schools, we're not ready to do it, we still have a window to say we have an adequate public facilities law, an APFO, or something equivalent, some density limitation because of, sometimes it's pipes, sometimes it's roads, but this is really about school space. Municipal governments don't manage and fund the schools, but the counties do. We build our growth plan in coordination with the school system and their capacity, and that's just the fundamental difference between the two of us. The 5-year rule has been the middle ground compromise. You don't want to say, as soon as you draw a new boundary, suddenly forget that there were ever schools. Those pressures on the schools are still there, even though those kids live in town.
So is that the 5 years that normally would be an APFO? Is that for the delay of a school construction? I mean, I know that you can't forever keep a developer from developing there, but you do for a certain amount of time.
Right. So the compromise under current law is in a newly annexed area for 5 years if a proposed development would violate a density requirement or the adequate public facilities law of the county, principally because of their schools. The county can say we can't handle it in our school space yet. And they can say no for that 5-year window.
So why not just limit that to schools? I mean, I understand the schools issue of the counties. And as you know, I live in a county with no cities, but if the counties are doing the schools, I understand that concern, but in terms of density, it seems like your cities are the places that you want the density, so why not just limit that control from the counties to just the school? Open, closed school charts, for example.
So I think it's an insightful question, and I will say, I think annexation law goes a level deeper beyond just the simple. I mean, we're all thinking of, here's the town, and here's this little patch just outside the town, and we'll annex them in, and they'll get city water or whatever, and then suddenly they'll get city services. Sometimes things are awfully different. Sometimes it's a town of 400 and a development of 2,800 that's 2 miles away, and we'll pretend you're part of your town, and we'll run a tiny little line along the highway, and we'll pretend we're part of your town. That's getting way beyond elements of smart growth and consolidating in current areas, and this is paving cornfields to do condos.
Just the last thing, I mean, I understand that, but maybe limiting it to schools and making sure that the city is the one that's responsible for the roads and other facilities in that area. I mean, I hear you, I don't know why you would otherwise give the counties just veto power for 5 years.
Sure. So I described it, I think, a moment ago as an uncomfortable compromise. This issue has been down the hall in a different committee and different places in this body over the years. I think your predecessors would speak the same way about these issues. These get tricky, and what tends to happen is you hear from hair on fire in this county, and we're upset in this town, and so forth. We come to you all, and we've got a long list of issues. Like we've got all sorts of arguments about annexation, incorporation, and so forth. You'll hear various among them, and so forth. If you can fashion a perfect solution, we'd love to be at the table for that. It's tougher than it sounds.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Delegate Wu?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, sir, for explaining that. One question about the APFO. Is that should be like countywide, which still include the city to be part of that APO calculation?
So the question is, like, would a county growth limitation, like an adequate public facilities law, do those apply in the cities and towns that have their own growth? They have their own planning and zoning. They don't. So even though the pressure's on schools, either countywide because we don't have capacity, or frequently it's by individual school. Like, this high school is overrun, so in the feeder area for this high school, we can't afford more than 400 more units in the next 5 years or whatever. If there's an incorporated town in that area, they get full control, and they don't need to follow the county limitations, even on county services where there's no municipal analogs. That's why this gets tricky, because the county's thinking big picture, the municipalities, just because of their charge, this isn't their fault, but health departments and libraries, it's not their job, and public schools are like that, and that's the biggest one.
That sounds not right.
It's an uncomfortable compromise.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sanderson. I'm seeing no more questions from the committee. That concludes the bill hearing on HB 99. We will move on to our last bill hearing of the day, HB 203, Delegate Vogel. Good afternoon.
Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair is not here, members of this committee. It's great to be back with House Bill 203, which looks to address temporary repayment agreements and set a prohibition on them. What we're discussing here are agreements where workers are forced in their contracts to agree to repayment of different training schemes. There's a number of different ways that this looks like. The example that we've heard most often from constituents is with nurses. Nurses who, they have their nursing degrees, they're ready to practice nursing, but then they go through a series of different onboarding requirements, and then the minute that they're looking to leave their job for whatever reason, they're told, oh, you owe thousands of dollars in training fees. So essentially, this is like a non-compete, right? Because if you're a worker and you're told that for you to leave your low-wage job or median-wage job, you have to repay thousands of dollars. There is no way for you to leave that job, or even worse, what ends up happening is that those repayments, they go to collections or they go into lawsuits. And you have the story of a nurse who ended up being sued for $5,000 plus attorney fees, brought her total debt to $6,300. Or a pilot who postponed his flight because of weather conditions and was fired because of it. And then the company, when they terminated him, demanded that he repay the cost of his training for that job. And when he didn't, they sued him for $20,000. So this is a tactic that we're seeing more and more businesses, employers now use to essentially keep workers trapped, right, in their jobs. There are a number of amendments. We've heard concerns, a number of different concerns on this bill, and have had conversations in good faith with a number of different employers. First, this does not apply to students. So if you are in a work-study program and you quit that program, there might be implications as to your tuition. This does not apply to apprenticeships. This does not apply to a employer looking to sponsor. There are employers in the state of Maryland that might offer to pay for an employee's MBA or other higher ed degree, grad degree, in exchange for them continuing to work at that business. That is allowed so long as that is not a requirement of their employment, right? They're not required to go get that MBA. If they want to get that MBA, their employer will sponsor them. And this also doesn't apply to transferable credits. So let's say your employer invites you, it pays for you to go get a degree at Montgomery College or Anne Arundel Community College or Howard Community College. So long as that degree is then, or that degree or that credit is then transferable to a different job, that is fine, but that also cannot be in your contract for employment. You can't be told, hey, for you to come work here, you need to go get $10,000 worth of community college credits that then you will be forced to repay if for whatever reason you want to leave your job. This is about fairness, about making sure that workers have the ability to move from one job to the other if necessary without being burdened by thousands of dollars of debt when looking to make that move. With that, I urge a favorable report on House Bill 203.
Thank you, Delegate. I had a question for you, and I'm glad you laid out some of the exemptions. I don't know if that's how, well, I think it's stated at least in the fiscal note, some of those exemptions. But I'm wondering, and you led with this example, and I heard about this public example that you maybe referred to with regard to a doctor, I think in Western Maryland, and just, different life circumstances require him to move, and he needed he could no longer commute, basically, to that location. Just based off the fiscal note, it says, current law does not address training repayment agreements, but it does restrict to a limited extent the use of non-compete or conflict of interest provisions in labor contracts. So I'm wondering if anything within existing law would speak to what you're trying to accomplish in this bill.
So, thank you, Madam Chair. Non-competes, there is an effort to crack down on non-competes. We understand how harmful those are for workers. I see this as a non-compete. This is an alternative version of a non-compete, right? Because if a worker who is making who's not making that much money is then told, hey, for you to leave this job, you're going to owe thousands of dollars. We know our Marylanders can't afford that, can't afford thousands of dollars to leave their job. So it essentially is a non-compete. And I will direct you to a letter from National Nurses United talking about how this really impacts nurses in the state of Maryland. And we know that we have a nursing shortage here, and trap agreements just make things worse.
Thank you. Delegate Siliberti.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Delegate Vogel, could you repeat that scenario concerning the pilot?
Mm-hmm. So this specific scenario, and I'm happy to share others with you as well, Delegate, was a pilot that was terminated from his job and was then required to, the company sued him for $20,000.
Why was he terminated?
Because he postponed a flight to Puerto Rico after checking the weather and determining it was unsafe to make the trip.
That's his decision, though. The pilot's here. The pilot makes the decision to fly or not fly.
It does not seem to be a fair situation that pilot was put in. And what made it even more unfair is that after leaving his job, he was forced to repay $20,000 in training fees. And again, to be a pilot, you already have to have training, right? It's not like he became a pilot through his job. He already had the necessary licenses, right? In the same way that if a nurse starts working at a hospital, they already have to have the necessary preparation, the necessary degrees to become a nurse. The training that they're getting on the job, sure, it might make them better at their job the same way that the training that we all have here in the General Assembly makes us better legislators. Delegate Ciliberti, if you were to ever leave the legislature, I wouldn't expect you to be forced to repay thousands of dollars in the training and the training that you got in your job here as a delegate.
Okay.
But I hope you don't go.
All right, thank you. There was a joke about on-the-job training here that we probably have at the expense of taxpayers.
Okay.
We don't have formal training as delegates. Delegate Wu.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, second bill in our committee, right? So one question. I always think about the situation. There are a lot of companies, right? They pay their employee to take training. They say you finish that or didn't finish that, they'll pay a certain percentage of your tuition. And then if you leave earlier or the conditions, right, say, okay, you need to pay back. Will this be considered, what kind of situation fall in this one?
So, great question, Delegate. I think it's my third time here, actually. I love this committee. So I mentioned that in some of the exemptions, and there is amendment language that if we haven't gotten to you yet, I'll make sure that you all get this after our hearing today. The situation that you're discussing around higher education, right? Let's say your employer wants to pay for you to get to go get a degree at Howard Community College, right? To help, or not even a degree, to go get credits, to go do a certificate, to go get some sort of training. That's fine, but two things need to be true there. One is that can't be a condition of your employment. So I can't say, if you were to hire me, Delegate Wu, you can't say, hey, Joe, I'm going to hire you, but for you to come work for me, you need to go take all of these credits at Howard Community College. And the other piece is, if that's the case, you can't make me then repay that, right? And so long as those credits are transferable to another job, and so long as that is not a condition of my employment with you, that's okay.
So I personally don't agree with that. So for certain jobs, for example, in cyberspace security, cybersecurity space, right? They say, we'll hire you, but we expect you pass certain, for example, security training, right? And we'll pay you for that. If you didn't finish in 2 years, that's probably the condition with job security, right? So I would say there's flexibility in the industry, and for some area, for some field, I feel it's reasonable for them to have that requirement because that's job, right? So I have a concern in terms of we're prohibiting them to put the pressure on the employee because that's a job requirement, right? So in that case, if they don't have that flexibility, they probably will not hire people, right, with no experience, because that actually built for young employee or new employee to gain that expertise during the job. And if we take this away, they probably not hire fresher employee.
Right, and I think that's where, again, the amendment language gets at around exemptions. And I'm happy to work with you on figuring out, we don't want the situation that you just laid out. We don't want that to be the case, right? We don't want to disincentivize hiring by any means. And there might be some industries that might need to be carved out given what you just shared. But generally, right, that is not what we're seeing. That is not what we're seeing here, right? When we're talking about nurses, for example, the TRAP agreements are not around them going to get different degrees or certifications. It's them getting on-the-job training that they already have the degree to do the job. They're just getting training within the hospital that is then, they're told, hey, now you have to repay that, which doesn't seem fair. And again, there's different situations that we might need to address and maybe create some exemptions around.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you, Delegate.
Thank you, Delegate Tomlinson. And that was not, I was working hard not to do it again, and I did it again. Delegate Tomlinson.
I just feel bad for him. Thank you, Madam Chair. Delegate Vogel, what was my question before I lost my train of thought? No, the chair, she had brought up, she was reading the line from the fiscal note about how the current law does not address the use of training repayment agreements. So I was just curious, which I'm kind of surprised that it's not addressed at all in the current law. But I was just curious, did you, because we're going from right now where they exist and you're trying to prohibit them. Did you have any conversations or did you entertain the idea of saying, within maybe the first year of employment or 2 years of employment, if you leave, you have to pay versus I can understand that it's not fair for an employer to say, 10 years later, you still have to pay for that training. But I can kind of understand maybe first 6 months, first year, 2 years, something like that. Did you ever entertain like a time frame or anything?
Thank you, Delegate Schindler. Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
No. Delegate Tomlinson, I think that is a fair point and a fair question to ask. Because like we were just discussing with Delegate Wu, there's different circumstances and different examples of temporary repayment agreements. So, to the extent that we want to figure out maybe a scheme like that, I'm open to it. But again, what we're really getting at here is the trap agreements that are essentially non-competes, just in a different form.
Thank you, Delegate Tomlinson. Delegate Schindler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Delegate Vogel, for the bill. I had a question very similar to what Delegate Wu presented, and what I would wonder is perhaps would an amendment be appropriate that's just a transparency at hiring time for something like this? Because I know there are a lot of positions that will say, hey, we want to give you your foot in the door in this industry, but we would expect you to get this particular certification within a certain amount of time. At your own dime. But is this a situation where the employees were not aware of the repayment provision at the time that they took the job, or when they were leaving?
Yeah, thank you, Delegate. I think there's 2 points here. One is I do think it would be a helpful first step to require greater transparency in these hiring agreements, right? To make it very clear what the expectations are in terms of getting, maybe it's an additional certificate or a degree or what have you. I do think that is slightly different than when it's on-site training, right? Where there's a PetSmart example as well, right? I believe it's PetSmart. It's one of the pet stores where they have to go through an academy that is it's within the operations of the store, right? But then they're forced to repay thousands of dollars for the training that they got for that job. And when you consider the wages that these folks are making, it's just deeply unfair, right? So I think it really depends on what the job is, but I do think that it would be at least a very helpful first step to address that issue of transparency in the hiring paperwork.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Schindler. Okay, seeing no more questions for the sponsor panel, we'll bring up the unfavorables. We'll begin with Michael Sanderson, Bill George, Jane Cranky. I have Sean Malone, and I have Amy Bills. I know there's not enough seats for all of you, but I'll let you guys duke it out.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Committee members, again, I'm Michael Sanderson with the Maryland Association of Counties. Just as a frame of reference, organization like MACO, we try not to come to the table on issues that affect the whole universe. We are employers, like the members of the Chamber of Commerce and so forth. We try not to come in and just say redundant stuff unless the issue is really specific to the public sector. And this particular practice truly is. We have a devil of a time recruiting and retaining staff, particularly in public safety spaces at county governments, and we use these kind of training agreements all the time to hire EMTs, to hire the specialists that are 911 call centers. These are jobs you cannot do without training. That's because of state standards or just standard industry practices. So those folks need training. To hire them, we bring folks in all the time with a two-way contract to say, we will give you the months of training you need to become the paramedic or to become the specialist call taker at the 911 call center, and then we'll have a 2-year deal. This is a standard, and honestly, it's a very productive relationship for these professionals. We can't afford to train someone for 6 months and have them just immediately move to the next county that's going to pay a few dollars more for a pre-trained person. So these kind of agreements are functionally a really good way to get good people into jobs we need to fill. Having this conversation about doing away with these training agreements while we're literally in the shadow of maybe the finest example you can imagine, the Naval Academy, of job training for a lifetime in exchange for a commitment of service, it's a little bit ironic. I understand the concept of the bill and the concern about NDAs and so forth, but please see from our point of view, this is a great tool to get good people into important jobs.
Thank you. Ms. Cranky.
Good afternoon, Chair Wells, Vice Chair Kerr, and members of the Government, Labor, and Elections Committee. Sorry, I've been calling you the GLEE Committee. My name is Jane Krinke. I'm here on behalf of the Maryland Hospital Association. We're here in respectful opposition of the bill. Of House Bill 203, we understand the intent to protect workers, but just like Mr. Sanderson was saying, we think it could be a devastating impact on our workforce. These agreements are used in certain cases, both in our upskilling, like grow your own programs, where employees may transition from a non-clinical role in housekeeping or registration to a clinical role as a tech or a nurse, as well as in our nurse residency program. And I wanted to focus in on the training that's offered through Maryland's nurse residency program, since Delegate Vogel mentioned it, or as nursing being a concern. So in 2018, Maryland became the first state to have all our acute care hospitals offer nurse residency programs. And these are year-long programs where after a nurse has graduated from school, they gain on-the-job training, hands-on learning, mentorship, professional development. Because when you go through nursing school, you're not ready to fully become a nurse on your own. You need that level of support. And we found that the retention rates are reflective. Once you have that support over that time, you stay. Nationally, without those types of residency programs, the retention rate is only 77%. Here in Maryland, our retention rate for first-year nurses is between 85 and 91%. And each year, the state invests about $12 million in these nurse residency programs. The funding saves an estimated $23 to $38 million in employee turnover cost. The Maryland Nurse Residency Collaborative surveyed our hospitals to see how many use these types of agreements. 46% of hospitals require nurse residents to sign a contract when they're hired. Of those contracts, 57% include a work obligation, and that usually ranges from a year to 18 months. And then 26.9% included a financial obligation. So we just wanted to share that there is a huge impact on this prohibition. So we ask for an unfavorable report.
Thank you. Mr. Malone.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee. On behalf of Associated Builders and Contractors, my name is Sean Malone. We also are testifying in opposition, although it was interesting to hear the presentation of the delegate and what he's trying to get at. I understand his concern. I think the way the bill's drafted is very broad. I'm the father of 3 young men who are entering the workforce, and they often say what we said when we went into the workforce, which is it's hard to get a job without experience. It's hard to get experience without a job. And for employers who are providing training, whether it be at the local government level, whether it be in the construction trades with nursing, we are doing the right thing by providing training to give people what they need to work in these fields, even if they don't have experience. My fear is that this bill where you could have to pay back triple the cost of training to an individual discourages exactly what we're trying to do in developing the workforce. A trap agreement is different than repaying a training agreement where, I hate it when Sanderson comes up with something I didn't think of, but he's right. The Naval Academies A perfect example of they pay for an education, in return they get 4 years of service or 6 years of service, I'm not sure which. And I think for employers who are training their employees, they are investing in the employee, they deserve the opportunity to reap the reward of that investment for doing that. And I think this bill misses the mark a bit with regard to that. We'd be happy to work with the sponsor. I also would draw a distinction too between an individual who is laid off or terminated through no fault of their own, an individual who gets the training and voluntarily leaves. That's and has signed an agreement. And I always find it interesting, Madam Chair, when we exempt out those with collective bargaining agreements from individuals who sign their own agreement. I'm not quite sure why we make that distinction in the bill. Thank you.
Great. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Bill George, Managing Director with the Maryland Municipal League, here today in opposition to House Bill 203. Mr. Sanderson laid out some of the similar concerns we have regarding the local government perspective generally. The feedback that we got from our membership is that these can work in a mutually beneficial way to both the employer and the employee if they have certain criteria, such as they provide value to the employee beyond the skills they need to perform that job. The participation is voluntary. The agreement is in writing and signed before the employee begins the training, and that the repayment amount actually reflects the cost of the training, not with additional fees or any sort of surcharge on them. In addition, some of these voluntary agreements, our members' feedback during the discussion about this bill is they'll simply stop offering the training that's not required for the job. This is a disincentive to invest in your human capital if there's no guarantee that you can recoup at least some return on that investment. And so lastly, it seems a bit of a sledgehammer approach to a maybe more nuanced problem. And hearing the sponsors' description of some of the things that may be problematic, we too believe that this bill as written doesn't, it may accomplish that goal, it also has some collateral damage to some repayment agreements that actually benefit both the employer and the employee. So we ask for an unfavorable on the report as written.
All right, thank you. We have a question from Delegate Terraza.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just really quickly, you guys aren't suggesting that they should have like unlimited amount of time that they need to stay, or whenever they leave, they have to pay it back. You're just saying you have agreements that you want to see agreements you specifically sign that say, we're going to train you for a certain amount of time. But if they're at the job and at some point they say you have to take this training, you still think they should have to pay that back? I mean, I understand like if you hire somebody and a condition of their employment is they do a certain amount of training. But if you're at your job and at that point they say, hey, you need to do this training to stay on the job, and then you have to pay it back if you don't then extend the contract for a certain amount of time, seems a little.
This bill is drafted, I don't think addresses that situation. I think under that situation, you could have a repayment agreement. This addresses as a condition of employment, if I've read it properly, that you would have to repay. But
with a limited amount of time, right? You're not suggesting an unlimited amount of time.
No.
If I may just quickly, I know the committee had some conversation about perhaps trying to limit this to just the point of hire. I would also say, I think at a point of added responsibilities or promotion might be another pivot point where an agreement like this would be appropriate. Someone becomes a manager and they might need some specific training in a managerial capacity they didn't need prior to that. So as a condition of advancement, we'll pay for your training so you can manage the new things. I don't think it's an unreasonable thing.
But you have to stay for a certain amount of time.
Same sort of thing, right? We'll make that investment, otherwise it's yours if you're going to take it elsewhere, right?
Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other questions, that concludes the bill hearing for HB 203. Thank you all. Good to see you. With that, this also concludes our bill hearings for today. We do have a vote session after, so we'll officially adjourn and then transition over to voting.